happy?
Why do people get so wound up about Harry and Meghan?
They hate the fact that he has found a life beyond the royals.
He hates the UK, as does she.
Where's your evidence that he hates the UK?
Well, because there's things he's said about the royal family also. I mean, we had to rewind back to when they left the country. It was just before COVID, a point at which we really needed our royal family. The Queen was genuinely a kind of sort of calming presence, and they scarpered off at the moment when actually he had a role he could have played, and he didn't do that.
His dad and older brother both stopped talking to him and both planted stories about him and his wife.
Because he had a terrible wife.
Okay, let's not go back digging into that, but is he...
The last time we saw him, he was lurching about on a Ring Doorbell, wasn't he? And unable to find the right house in London. I mean, he's not a man.
Who doesn't like him, you sure do know a lot about what he's been up to.
When people ask, why do people get so wound up about Harry and Meghan? The answer isn't complicated. What we saw on the Jeremy Vine show clip says it all. The frustration isn't logical, it's emotional, rooted in projection, and driven by a media system terrified of losing control. Right at the start of that clip, the guest blurts out, "They hate the fact that he has found a life beyond the world." And that line exposes everything. Harry dared to step outside the royal bubble, the same bubble the UK press profits from. The rage isn't about him moving or marrying Meghan. It's about the fact that he refused to be the spare on demand. He chose happiness over duty, freedom over performance, and that threatens an entire industry built on royal misery. Then the panellist claimed, "He hates the UK." Immediately, the other guest challenged him. "Where's your evidence that he hates the UK?" And the first man started scrambling. "Well, he said things about the royal family, if you rewind back." Exactly. Criticising an institution is not hating a country. Harry has always made it clear. He loves the UK, the people, the culture, his charities, his veterans' work. What he doesn't love is the abuse, the racism, the coordinated leaks, and the palace media machine that targeted Meghan. Calling that hating the UK is dishonest. The clip then dives into the tired narrative. They left just before COVID, when we needed the royals. First, the timeline doesn't even match. Harry and Meghan announced their departure in January 2020. The pandemic escalated months later. Britain didn't need them. The tabloids needed access to them. The institution needed scapegoats. The press needed their favourite targets. And when the guest tried to use the Queen as a sentimental prop, saying she was a calming presence during COVID, he ignored the fact that Meghan was suicidal before they left. Where was that compassion then? Where was that protection? The same people who demand Harry and Meghan should have helped during the pandemic couldn't bring themselves to help Meghan when she was suffering under relentless abuse. Then we heard the most revealing line of all. They scarpered off when he had a role he could have played. Translation: he refused to be the family's workhorse. He refused to be the tabloid's punching bag. He refused to sacrifice his wife for royal optics, and that's why they're angry. But the clip didn't stop there. One guest even said William stopped talking to Harry and planted stories because he had a terrible wife. There it was, the misogyny, out in the open. Meghan being articulate, confident, empathetic, and unwilling to be controlled doesn't make her terrible. It makes her incompatible with a system that expected her to stay silent while being attacked. Then the panel tried to reduce Harry's entire public life to a joke. The last time we saw him, he was lurching about on a Ring Doorbell. Really? That's the best they can do? Harry is testifying against the tabloid industry, advocating for veterans, supporting mental health causes, collaborating globally on serious issues, but they want to talk about a doorbell? It's a distraction tactic. a lazy one. And that's why the other guest delivered the perfect closing line. You sure do know a lot about what he's been up to. Because here's the truth. If they don't like him, why do they track his every move? Why memorize every rumour? Why analyse every photo? Because they're obsessed. Their entire commentary depends on Harry and Meghan. Let's zoom out. Harry and Meghan represent one thing the British press cannot stand: freedom. They showed you can walk away and still thrive. You can tell your story without palace approval. You can build a life on your terms. And the establishment cannot forgive that. Despite all the smears, Harry and Meghan have never responded with cruelty. When they spoke up, they used facts. They corrected lies calmly and clearly. That's why the tabloids attack them so aggressively, because they can't discredit integrity. So why do people get so wound up about Harry and Meghan? Because the couple exposed the fragility of an institution built on silence. They exposed how much the monarchy depends on scapegoats. They exposed how deeply the press relies on hate-driven content to survive. Critics say Harry abandoned his duty, but he walked away from abuse, not responsibility. He protected his wife and children when no one else would. That's not weakness. That's leadership. The panelists on that show blame Harry for not helping during the pandemic. But where were they when Meghan needed help? When racist articles dominated headlines? When palace officials refused to correct dangerous lies? Support is a two-way street, and the institution failed them first. The truth is simple. The critics need Harry to be the villain. If Harry is the problem, then the institution isn't. If Meghan is the problem, then the tabloids aren't. That's why their talking points never change. But despite every attack, Harry and Meghan are thriving. They're raising 2 happy children. They're building businesses. They're travelling, creating, and giving back. They're living freely. Meanwhile, the people criticising them are stuck in the same loop, making up theories, recycling rumours, and revealing their bitterness. And clip unintentionally exposes each type of critic. The emotional reactor claims Harry hates the UK, with no evidence. The historian rewriter insists the couple abandoned Britain during COVID. The misogynist blames Meghan for everything. The comic relief brings up Ring Doorbell footage because he has nothing else. The obsessive knows every detail but pretends not to care. What the clip truly shows is the weakness of the anti-Sussex argument. Press them for facts and they fall apart. Ask for evidence and they change the subject. Challenge their claims and they crumble. If Harry had stayed in the system, he would have been used endlessly. Meghan would have been destroyed by the media. And the same critics would still be complaining because their issue was never behaviour. It was identity. It was race. It was independence. Harry realised he couldn't fix a system that refused to acknowledge its flaws. Leaving wasn't running, it was protecting. And that is what scares the critics most. Because Harry and Meghan's success proves the monarchy needs them far more than they need the monarchy. So when that guest said, "You sure do know a lot about what he's been up to," he exposed everything. The obsession, the hypocrisy, the dependence. People swear the Sussexes are irrelevant, yet they discuss them daily. They insist Harry walked away, yet they follow him everywhere. They claim not to care, but they watch every interview, every appearance, every headline. Harry and Meghan didn't just leave the monarchy. They walked into a new chapter, and they're showing the world what real power looks like. Not inherited power, not symbolic power, but personal power, the power of choice, truth, independence, and authenticity. So the next time someone asks, why do people get so wound up about Harry and Meghan? The answer is this: because their freedom exposes other people's insecurity. Their happiness challenges old systems. Their success proves you can build a life beyond the institution. And their critics can't stop watching. In the end, the clip didn't expose Harry. It exposed his critics, their contradictions, their jealousy, their obsession, and their fear of a world where Harry and Meghan will continue to rise with or without their approval.